All right. I think I was a nice guy for a long time. I think prior to drinking, I don't know what I was. That guy's dead and gone. But getting sober, I turned into a nice guy. So somewhat shy with girls as far as like I'm not forward. I don't go and approach women until they say no and find the the wounded gazelle like you see a lot of guys doing. You know, I don't know. Like, I was very susceptible to being manipulated. And I think that's the point that I'm going to try to drive here. And the nice guy in a sense that I did not have healthy boundaries. So it was never about my wants or my needs. I mean, I would express them here and there, but at the end of the day, I could be bulldozed over and not have an opinion because, you know, her opinion is exponentially more relevant than mine, and I just need to be a good guy and continue being a nice guy. So contrast that with where I've arrived today through massive trial and error. I'm still a very nice guy. I'm a very respectful guy. I'm a gentleman. I'm old school. I like to open the doors for my date and my woman, my wife, my fiance, whatever. I guess I don't have a wife, but I would say my girlfriend. I have a girlfriend now. I like to open the door for my girlfriend. I like to be a gentleman. I like the old ways of cordiality and manners. However, I draw a hard line in the sand on what I'll accept and what I won't, and I am more capable of picking out behaviors that will only get worse and that are destructive, and identifying them so that I can mitigate them and or avoid them altogether. I can tell you from experience, I wasn't able to do this early on in my sobriety because quitting the drinking and drugging is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to learn if you're anything like me and grew up in a home where you just didn't have good structure, you didn't have good education as far as like social dynamics and behaviors and psychologies and things like that. So, and when I say psychologies, I mean different types of behaviors and, you know, the way we interact with each other and just human behaviors in general. So now I think it's imperative that, I mean, I'd have to advocate for anyone the same thing I did. Learn about healthy behaviors, toxic behaviors, narcissism, codependency, all of these things. One thing I will say about my experience getting back into my church is when I went to the member of our clergy at the time saying, look, my marriage is a disaster, it's horrible. He didn't know what to do. He tried to get us into counseling, and I know the guy did his best. And ultimately it failed miserably as far as the marriage and, you know, trying to fix all that at the time. I'd say now, looking back, like everything else, one of the best things that could have happened to me and so many others, you know, like who I've become making it through that is it's all worth it. But one thing he did do that I very much appreciate, he turned me on to Dr. John Lund. The guy wrote How to Hug a Porcupine, maybe one of the most popular books of notoriety that he did. But in one of his books, he outlines specific behaviors that are toxic, and I think there's like 23 of them. You know, things like criticizing, which is mine, I'll admit it. Yelling, mind reading, gaslighting, things like that. It just goes down this list. And so that, combined with a whole bunch of other education on my YouTube channel, anyone that's resonated with me as far as like talking about psychology, Ross Rosenberg writes a lot of good stuff on codependency, but any literature or information you can come across that will help you understand, I mean, educate yourself on healthy behaviors. What is a healthy relationship? It's technical term is interdependent versus codependent, right? What is an interdependent relationship? So I'm still nice now, 2 marriages later, 13 years sobriety, getting kicked in the groin over and over and over again through life. But now when I am involved in a relationship of any sort, I am more educated on what's appropriate and what's not, what's healthy, what's not, what I'm okay with. I'm more at peace with what I'm okay with in my life. And I would rather be alone than be with somebody who treats me poorly. There's this big misconception of what a relationship is. Like if there's certain behaviors and things that are happening and you can't identify them, like I couldn't back when I was a nice guy, you're just going to get walked over. You're going to lose who you are. You're going to completely become, you're going to migrate away from your true potential. Right now, I am migrating towards my potential. I get to be what, in my opinion, what God intended for me to be, whatever God is. But I only involve myself in healthy dynamics, and that goes for my kids, for my immediate family, definitely for my relationships. So nice guy versus smart guy. I think that's the difference. You can be a nice guy and a smart guy. You can also be nice, and you can be gullible, and you can be manipulated. You can be walked all over. I see it all the time. People just put on a smile and they just, you know, do anything they can to appease people and not ruffle feathers. And it's hard to draw a line in the sand and say, look, this is something I won't put up with, and be willing to walk away from any deal or any relationship if they don't at least try to meet you in the middle somewhere or honor that specific line. I can say, like, one thing for certain in a relationship: we don't hit each other, ever. I won't hit them, they don't hit me, we don't hit. And that could be one where, you know, even if you're the guy and you're being physically attacked, lay down that boundary. I did it, I can end it with this. In my last marriage, she'd physically strike me, man. She hit me in the face all the time. And the first time she did it, I said, you ever do that again, I won't hit you back, but I will call the police. And I stuck to my guns, and I did it. And she ended up going to jail. But I ended up, like a good codependent, like a good enabler, getting her out of that situation, paid for it, legally helped get her out of that mess. She was pregnant at the time, or I would have just, you know, I would have bailed on the whole thing. But, you know, I just felt inclined to try to make us fix it and get better, and you know, take her on as a sponsee, and I was gonna just, you know, we were gonna work through it. It only got worse. It didn't get better. She continued to not only just physically attack me and hit me, like with just in all types of horrible ways, but there were many other abuses that came out. It just got worse and worse and worse. And then when we finally got to a counselor, you know, a lot of things were exposed, and she ended up divorcing me rather than getting help for the problems that were identified. Not mad, not bitter, just that's what happened. And you know, I lost who I was, like who I am now as a father, as a person, who I am walking around this moment versus who I was in the midst of that, you know, relationship, allowing those behaviors to continue, and, you know, jeopardizing my serenity, my sanctity, my boundaries, and sacrificing those just, you know, out of fear of it ending, or whatever other motives I had to continue down that path. It was, I'm glad I made it through. A lot of good learning lessons in that. So that's what I would convey to you. Like, you know, being a nice guy. So, like, you know, along those lines, going into, again, members of the clergy, or, you know, really when you're church affiliated, quite often there's this, well, you need to be a better person and everything will work out. And I kind of got that message, like I was screwing up somewhere, like I needed to be more of a nice guy. And if I was more of a nice guy, then things would get better. And that just was not the case. Like, there were specific things and specific behavioral areas on her side, the both of us. I mean, it takes two to argue, so it's not like I'm totally innocent here. But my codependency and her narcissistic cluster B personality disorder issues were not going to be resolved through me being a nicer guy and being more, reading more scriptures and everything else, the nonsense that was thrown at me as far as solutions go. So anyway, I hope that helps, man. Educate yourselves, learn about healthy behaviors. You got to be smart. We have to be educated on specific things related to relationships. What is a healthy relationship? And as soon as you start seeing flags, then you're able to identify it. And if you have a third-party counselor, a good one, then you can hold each other accountable. Something happens, you can say, all right, this happened, let's go talk about it with a trusted third party. And if somebody's really sick, they're not going to like a good counselor, because they're going to identify toxic behaviors, and that's a good sign for you to get out anyway. It's better to be out and alone, I promise you, than to be involved in a toxic relationship. No matter what you think would happen outside of a toxic relationship, I promise you it's better than staying inside of one. All right, thanks, bye.